Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to installment number 2 from my videos about Fright Night. If you haven't watched my initial video and need a refresher, Fright Night is my favorite vampire film, and Jerry Dandridge is my favorite vampire character in fiction in general. I had originally planned to do one big video covering the first 2 movies and the remake, but it just wasn't really going that well. It's kind of dry and it's all over the place, so I decided to split it up and do, a few different ones. So for this entry, I'm going to be covering Fright Night 2 from 1988, the synopsis for which is as follows. Charley, Brewster, and Peter Vincent must face more vampires out for revenge. Okay, well that was basic as hell. So let me open this up a little bit more here. Basically, Charley is in college now and has been in therapy to deal with the aftermath of all the events from the first film. By this point, he is basically convinced that it was all in his head, that he and Peter Vincent had just confronted a serial killer, and to cope with the trauma of what they had dealt with, they kind of invented this, all these vampire aspects of their story. So now he's worked through all of that, and he's able to move on with his life. He's in college, even has a new girlfriend and everything. So while we are in this new situation, there are some repeats of parts of the formula that was kind of used in the first film that had worked, but not so much to distract from the story or feel like they're running out of ideas or just are repeating themselves. So for instance, we still get this, a bit of that feel of the Rear Window kind of aspects, that paranoia, suspecting people, and so on. This time around in a form of a woman who just came to town named Regine, who has her own little coven in the form of this brute kind of vampire, played by Brian Thompson, who feeds mainly off of bugs, kind of like how Chris Sarandon had come up with this idea in the first film to work in an apple, that maybe he was like on an evolutionary track, that he had come from fruit bats. This guy, it's like he came from, regular insect-eating bats. We get this beastly one, played by John Grease, turning into something that looks almost more canine-like in a way, but is always kind of hanging on to that human side of himself still, trying to hook up with women and get laid just as much as he's trying to feed off of them. We get this other really strange roller skating one that's simply just vicious, kind of like a right hand of Regine, zooming in on roller skates, taking somebody out. Really kind of creepy. So we get a lot more characters with that. So anyways, like I said, Charley has moved on and has Peter, but now we have the issues of Charley suspecting Regine and thinking vampires are back, while Peter is at the same time being let go from his show and replaced by Regine, who is posing as a performance artist of sorts who is going to take over those hosting duties. So we still get a little bit of that repeat of Charley needing to prove to a non-believer that vampires are real, such as his girlfriend. But this time, instead of his girlfriend being bitten like Amy was in the first film, it's Charley himself, slowly being altered and, putting us right in the thick of everything, early on, of needing to vanquish these vampires and kind of, save himself. But we get to see a little bit more of like his transformation, and as he's slowly being kind of like disturbed by sunlight and garlic and starting to crave blood, like all these little things. So it's stuff that we didn't get to see from Amy in the first film, but we get to see some of that from Charley in this one, and it works out pretty well. On the surface, it doesn't really sound that different, but it is. The pace is a bit different. There are more characters, of course, which I think is a great thing. And in the absence of a character like Evil Ed, who was basically putting forth like the brunt of the humor, pretty much all of the humor in the first film, except for maybe a few scenes with Charley's mom, we mainly get it from that beastly and brute-style vampires played by John Grease, who of course you may know from several films, including playing Laszlo in Real Genius and Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite. And, the brute one, like I said, played by Brian Thompson, who, with over 100 credits on IMDb, you have seen him somewhere, and you will recognize him. So they're back and forth, kind of jabs at each other, even like this playful, like fighting that they're having to, brings this comedy to the forefront from them. We even get a little bit of it from Charley's therapist, and from one of his friends who's played by the late Merrick Buttrick, who played Kirk's son in Star Trek 3, and playing, I think the character's name was Johnny in Square Pegs. So we still get those little bits of comedy in it, but it's kind of spread out over like 3 or 4 characters, with us not having Ed in this one. I feel like this one stands out to me because of the extra characters mainly. We get this changed up location as well, and swapping a few things in the formula from the first one while sticking with what worked from that first one. Along with that, we get what seems to be a bigger budget, or at least it comes across that way. We get those great practical effects again, and we get a lot more of that. We also have another really good soundtrack going on this one, and the shots are really planned out in a very engaging way. It's just really a good, fun film. To me, this is a perfect sequel, you know, carrying over the best from the first film while not retreading too much on that material and bringing something new to this installment. And really, the only reasons why I'd really put this behind the first one, first reason is nostalgia, of course. You know, the first one was my first introduction to these characters, so it's always going to be kind of my favorite one because of that. And the second, while this is, you know, put together well, it's missing some heart. You know, it's fun and spooky and sexy, etc., but something that heart just is missing. It's just not quite there. It's not a bad thing, really, but just different. You know, if I gave the first one a 10 out of 10, for me, this is a solid 8.5. So it's definitely worth checking out. And although this is a follow-up to the first, it can be enjoyed on its own, meaning I never feel like I need to rewatch the first one before checking out the second one. It really stands on its own two legs, and, you know, it's just a great one to check out. And speaking of checking out, where can you check out this one? Got me. Unfortunately, the rights for this one were always kind of like a bit messed up. From what I hear, it was only even in the theaters for maybe a week or two. But anyways, I had picked up the DVD years ago. Really great cover on this one, and it's actually kind of difficult to find this now. I think these go for anywhere from 30 to 80 bucks. I've seen them, the pricing all over the place. And then I got this one from Spain, the Blu-ray, which luckily does play in our region, and it does have an English track on it. This one also is somewhere around 30 bucks. Because of those rights mix up, that this isn't even available on streaming anywhere that I can find, even for paid rental, which is very, very strange. But yeah, it's worth checking out. Like I said, this Blu-ray, I confirm it does work in America, and it does have English, so if you want to check it out, you can go ahead and buy one of these. But yeah, so there's a Spanish one, like I said, which I was tipped off to via a friend on Twitter, and everything works. It's region-free. You can pick that one up, or maybe track down an old DVD. But, you know, hopefully one day it'll be a little bit easier to check this one out rather than getting an old DVD, you know, marked up, or an expensive Blu-ray from another country. But until then, if you can find it, check it out. You know, just like you checked out my latest video here, for which I thank you for, you know, sticking around to the end. Be sure to like and subscribe, and hit that little bell icon so you can get that notification for when I put up probably my final Fright Night video, in which I cover the 2011 remake starring Anton Yelchin, Toni Collette, Colin Farrell, and the Doctor himself, David Tennant. I say probably because I know, you know, there's Fright Night 2 New Blood from 2013, but seeing as it kept the same character names, but then changed up who they were, changed up the location, it just didn't really make much sense to me, and I turned it off after 15 minutes. Maybe I'll give it another try, give it a second chance, see if it's actually worth it, you know, but anyways, we'll see. Anyways, thanks for coming by and for sticking around to the end, and I will see you in the next one.